Death metal hails from Rauta. This time we go to United States of America with the third album of the band called Sentient Horror. This one is Rites of Gore. Now, I got to know this band for the first time in 2016 when they pushed out their first album. That was prior to Rauta channels. Obviously, I haven't reviewed that one over here, but reviewed in that one in Imperium, where I have been writing these reviews for 20 years. And that got me interested in this band because the debut album is really good. That is very traditional, but nonetheless brutal, unforgiving death metal. Not like brutal death metal, but still very much crushing your bones and delivering those blows that makes you love death metal. The kind of old school way, but with a more modern touch, if you will. Now, the second album came 3 years later, and unfortunately that wasn't as great. That was a good album nonetheless, but not even nowhere near the first album in terms of quality. That came out in 2019, that is, and that I reviewed also for Rauta. Anyway, because of these two albums, I was very stoked to hear about this third album. Once again, 3 years later, 2022. And now that I finally have here, and I have been spinning this quite a few times, I must say this is better than the second album, but not as good as the first album. So, a good album for real, but not exactly the quality of the first album. So, as you can see here on Metal Archive site of Sentient Horror, this one was founded in Stockholm, but not in Sweden, but New Jersey, United States of America. In 2016, well, technically speaking 2014, but 2016, it seems they changed their name or became active, reactivated, I guess would be the right word. And that's when they released this Ungodly Forms, the great debut album. And as such, the band has now 3 albums out and then some smaller releases. And as we all know, albums are how bands either success or fade away, because that's really how you define the quality and all. Now, why I mentioned that Stockholm is interesting because some people really say this is related to Stockholm, Sweden related death metal, especially bands like Entombed, Grave, etc. So, you know, Entombed cover, here it is, I guess giving this band a lot of influence. And of course bands like Grave, etc., Vomitory are somewhat present in this music. But in my opinion this still sounds more like American death metal. So while you might have a strong Swedish thing going on with this album, this one is not your typical Boss HM2 kind of a death metal, but definitely leaning to early 90s, even late 80s with the style. That is, you might have nuances of thrash metal like the first death metal albums had back in the 1980s. Doesn't matter whether we're talking about Morbid Angel, Necrophagia, or, you know, Cannibal Corpse, you can hear those trashy elements right there under the surface. That is, if you really went through the age back in the days. Now, whatever it is, whatever kind of a background that you have, doesn't really concern how this album folds out. The thing here is, this one delivers you great riffs, great production, good growly vocals, and everything you really need to have in order to enjoy some proper death metal. So while this is not exactly the most original or phenomenal when it comes to death metal, this is how it sounds. This is how good death metal is defined. So, not maybe as such a surprising or genre-defining album, but if you would ask me just like, hey Jerry, give me an idea how old school or traditional death metal sounds like these days, and you're not allowed to touch your 1980s or 1990s album, you could just pick Rites of Gore and so, yeah, this is death metal. So whether you are an old schooler of death metal style or newbie, a teenager coming to the style of death metal, and you want to hear something that defines death metal perfectly, this is the kind of album you could really go on with. So I think this is a good album, one of the better ones in 2022, and I'm happy about it. I'm happy to put it in my collection, and I hope to see this band someday live as well, because this is how I want to see death metal taking forward, to stay true to the roots of the genre and still maintaining some modernity to it. Can I say modernity? Well, whatever, I just did. Anyway, check out the links provided in the description box to find more about more information about the band, and of course listen to the music. So there it is. Enjoy some Sentient Horror and let me know how you like it. Thanks and bye-bye.